NDC's communication team, and George is in the studio. George, how are you? It's been a while.
Yes.
What
Good morning. I'm
is
great. These are my own notes. I gleaned from.
Thought you were having summarized versions of the budget.
No, I actually printed versions. I wanted to use.
We'll be talking about the budget. That's well. On the front page of the papers we have this morning, we're told that the economy is not in crisis, but the minority say mid-year review. An indication of more hardships to come. What do you make of yesterday's presentation of the budget, asking for a supplementary 3.2 billion Ghana cedis?
First of all, let me say
for expenditure for the rest of the year.
Yeah, first of all, let me say a very good morning to viewers at home or wherever they find themselves. Roland, I don't think anybody will debunk the assertion that the media review was a necessity, and the fact that government ought to ask for more money to spend. It's an issue that nobody will argue. Perhaps I believe people would want to talk about the figure. We find ourselves in a very tight situation. Anticipated revenues have not come in. Both tax and non-tax. With regards to the non-tax, with regards to grants and concessionary loans, we're not getting as much as we had anticipated. Again, with tax, general output has not been at its best. We know consumption has slowed down a little bit. It is very evident in our daily lives as well.
Well, is it not because prices have gone? Inflation really seems to be skyrocketing.
Yes,
as a result of that, if you look at the economics of it, generally, when such variables are inching up the roof, definitely, consumption, as far as we're concerned, will always be low.
Yes, I don't think the debate is about inflation or...
Not necessarily, of course.
Or inflation going up or not. It has to do more with, I think, to contextualize the argument, we need to be looking at the pressure on the CD. The pressure on the CD, has so many ramifications, which include, one of them is inflation going up, and thereby necessarily cost of living going up and slowing down consumption. It is a no doubt. But then again, we need to contextualize the argument to get the broader picture and the broader perspective. I don't think anybody out there can point to a government policy which has led to the depreciation of the city. There's not a single policy out there that you can. Again, if you look at the issues raised by SETEC, the finance minister, I don't think we can run away from. I don't think you and I can run away from the fact that we have an insatiable, desire to always acquire things that are foreign in nature. If I look at you, I don't see anything Ghanaian on you. That is a pressure on the city.
This shirt was made in Accra.
No, I
Central
doubt.
Accra.
I doubt.
Was sold in Accra.
This is not that Accra. It could be made. It could be made in Ghana.
But of course, the material was imported.
That is the point. So
because we don't manufacture cotton materials.
But what I am saying,
even though we produce cotton.
I agree. But what I'm saying is, there's so much pressure by our lifestyle, our own lifestyle, on our currency. But if you look at what government is doing to alleviate those issues and to take away some pressure of the city, to me, I see a subtle substitution policy currently going on. You look at the urgency at which government is attaching to the development of the Atuabo gas plant. We take so much money, so much foreign currency. We convert our city into dollars to purchase gas from outside. When we get that should lessen the demand. The demand on the side of government with regards to foreign currency.
We've had this for the last 12 months, and should I even say 12 months? I believe that for the last 18 months, and for many people, it's a rhetoric.
I don't think it's a rhetoric, and I believe that with developmental goals or objectives, we have different standards. Perhaps we may have they can easily be classified into three standards. We have the short term, you have the mid term, and then you have the long term. The government has stated that the long term is to change the structure of the economy so that we no longer become an import-driven economy, but then an export-driven economy. That is the long-term picture, and to achieve that, you need to put in place measures that will see to it that we become I mean, first of all, we even need to manufacture to our consumption level before that is achieving self-sustenance, before we even think of exporting. That is the long term. But then there are short term and mid term. One of the short term, like I said, the turbo gas plant. I mean, we are going to have our own gas very soon. That should release or free some foreign currency for the private market. Again, you look at 2 days ago, the Ministry of Agric has launched a broiler project. They started with over 1 million birds. Broilers, the turnover for broilers is about 36 days. So these are short-term measures. You look at the money that we used to import poultry into this country. It's alarming. As at 2010, Pascal Ngame, the former Director General of WTO, said in a report, Ghana consumes 1/3 of all imported poultry into Africa. That is serious. One single country, we consuming 1/3. And I don't think we'll be debating over those figures.
Would you say, contentiously though, that it is because policy of the state or government has led to, over time, some of these scenarios we're witnessing now?
Yes, by and large. For instance, if you go to the poultry industry, I remember Pascal Ngame granted an interview to Joy. He came to Ghana one time, somewhere 2011 or so. And he said, we are dependent on foreign imports with regards to poultry.
And from 2011, we've stayed on doing nothing significant enough to reverse the trend until we've witnessed a dissipation of the variables of the economy.
I don't think we've stayed on. I believe that in 2011 budget we saw an upward adjustment.
Why didn't we implement the so-called revitalization broiler project way years before now?
Why didn't we?
Why are we now instituting such a project? Didn't we always know?
No, you see,
these have always been pointed out.
No, Roland, like I say, you need to contextualize the argument. Of course, now you can easily have asked that question, but at the point that he said, you cannot just wake up today and say policies take time. I mean, from the onset, even formulation of policy as well, even takes pretty some time. We cannot just, oh, we are importing so much, so tomorrow we are going to cease importing. You can't do that. You need to put in place a regimented substitution policy, which has been ongoing. We are about seeing the fruits of those policies, and that is why this poultry, these 1 million birds comes in. Again, it's not just that. If you read the policy document, I mean the budget, the revised budget document yesterday, it talks about the growth in agriculture. You ask yourself, how did we achieve that? It wasn't done overnight. Livestock, poultry, cocoa, though cocoa prices for the first half, was bearish. Cocoa prices for the first half was bearish. It started picking up, yet our production never did. You understand? I mean, that tells you that something was in the offing, something was being done. At the end of the day, for instance, if you are to go aggressively with cocoa exports, okay, cocoa doesn't take 1 day or 2, 3, 4 months to mature. I mean, right from sowing the seeds and stuff. It takes a while. So as at now, if you look at the document presented to Parliament yesterday, you realize that some things were being done, and those things were actually targeted at midterm goals and midterm reviews. The most pressing thing to address now is short term. Is how to make sure that we have enough dollars to stop this demand supply.
The depreciation of the city.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Just because we have a lot more demand for the dollar.
We have huge demand, not just a lot. We have huge demand for the dollar, and there are reasons why there is this demand. Look, when we were having the power, crisis. When we were having a power crisis,
we are still having a power crisis, unless you argue.
I wouldn't say we're having a power crisis now, but it has been fairly stable. But I'm not saying it has been totally resolved. It has been fairly stable, and I believe that viewers, wherever you find yourself, you agree that the power
things are better now than
they are better now. But then again, at that level, somewhere last year and early part of this year, we are having to import light crude oil with hard currency. That was a huge demand on the government. And because the CD had because there was so much pressure on us to acquire foreign currency to keep our trade going, we ended up losing value, because every time we have to take the CD and buy dollar so that we import crude, we have to take the CD and buy dollar so that we import the things that you and I need, so that we import the trousers, the shoes you are wearing. Somebody have to take the CDs and change to dollar to bring in the cars here. Those are things that government is actually looking at.
How the demand for such consumables and because they are imported tend to have excessive pressure on the economy.
Exactly.
So with a little difficulty or experiences that may be recorded within the local economy, then we see that the demand of the dollar will go high.
And don't forget
but you should also acknowledge that as far as the monetary policy commitment of the Bank of Ghana are concerned, the measures that were introduced seem to have done a lot more harm than good.
Where I say it, I am inclined to disagree slightly, because you need to look at the rate of depreciation, the rate of.
Well, we do understand that, because following that, the Bank of Ghana himself came and reversed the situation, revised its own regulations or rules that it introduced.
The revision does not mean that the policy was bad, does not mean that the policy in itself did not achieve what
did it?
To understand, if you look at before the policy, you see, before we can go on with this debate, you need to look at the rate of fall. Before the policy, at what rate was the cedi depreciated? And then after the policy, at what rate?
Let me ask you, granted that I don't know any other figure as far as to what level the cedi has depreciated from January till now, what do you think is the estimated figure has been bandied around of depreciation from January till now?
Do I think it's just, there's currently, there's so much speculation in the economy, and speculation in itself in economics has its positive gains. When there is negative speculation about a currency, when people are a bit, they're a bit worried about the fall or the appreciation of a currency, it could mean two things. For instance, if you are anticipating that our cedi will be strong, a lot more people will be opting to keep their money in cedis, or a lot more people will be opting to get cedis. Now, there's so much, cynicism and negative speculation with regards to the cedi, sometimes without basis. And I remember, I think last Thursday, when the governor, Dr. Kofi Wampa, presented the 61st Monetary Policy Committee report, and he was asked about, the cedi depreciating a bit further. He asked the question, on what basis? Economics is a science. You cannot just say, oh, I expect the cedi, the dollar, or for instance, I wake up and say, I expect the dollar, the cedi to be stronger, and by the end of the day, I expect the cedi dollar to be back at 1.2. I need an empirical basis.
No, we do understand the cedi will not reduce as far as its level with the US dollar is concerned, because that price tag is never going to reduce. We do understand that.
No, but
because we live in an economy where there's some level of inflation and prices go up.
Yeah.
Well, the prices don't come down even if the trends are set to be deeming or set to be better.
Well, I think that we are a little bit slow to responding to the positives in the economy. That in itself tells us a lot with regards to the structure of the economy. We still have a lot of informal. But we realize that since it's a market economy, the economy reacts very fast to negatives. And one clear example was the fact that when the governor presented the report, the Monetary Policy Committee report on Thursday, I don't know how many of you follow the world market, but then again, due to some of the things he said, the market reacted. The cedi had a huge slip. No, it slipped. The cedi slipped because of
because if I remember,
because of the fact that he raised certain things.
It was just by 0.02 or 5.
No, it had actually been fairly stable throughout the entire week until Friday. After it started dipping on Thursday, because when people met the governor, instead of bringing what the governor had said, they decided to posit their own thing. And the speculation is coming out from what you and I are hearing or what you and I are saying on radio, on TV,
you
or
are a
telling our
government
friends.
communicator. Doesn't it inure to your benefit if you're always on the defensive and say perceived speculation by would-be detractors or critics of government and its own economic policy or fiscal policy could also be attributed to some of the difficulties that we're experiencing in the economy?
I'll tell you what this experience, and it's unfortunate that most often than not, when we raise the issue of speculation and cynicism or doomsaying, people think that, oh, well, I can understand. But in 2009, as part of dealing with the economic challenge, UK had to ban short-term speculation. You could not speculate on any short-term commodity, any short-term trading, because the economy was very, and it's a market economy, and that's exactly what we have now.
Understand that, but I remember that very policy that was introduced. But across the media in the United Kingdom at the time, there were specific experts who, based on their own experiences and observations and expertise, were allowed to speculate based on whatever projections they were seeing.
You could not speculate.
And I remember the Bank of Ghana in his press conference
that is misleading.
For the Monetary Policy Committee in
that
Ghana,
is misleading.
said the speculations would be right if people were making those speculations based on figures or indicators within the economy that they thought had been empirical or well observed scientifically.
Yes, Roland, but what I am saying is this. In UK, they ban short-term speculation. I mean, short-term speculation. Speculation is a full-time job. An economist can decide to be a speculator. And what they do is they anticipate prices of commodities being traded, and then those trading will react or respond to whatever they are saying. If I'm a forex trader, and I'm hearing that the cedi is going to appreciate, if an economist comes to sit on there and say the cedi is going to appreciate, if I'm a forex trader, I'll quickly go and buy cedis. I'll quickly buy cedis. For the time being, if I hear that, if I buy the cedis, what then that means is that I'm using less cedis to get, more dollars to get, currently I'll be using less dollars to get the cedis. But then when you do the reverse, meaning that cedi is quite weightier than my dollar. Now, you just suppose that in an economy. If I come and sit here and somebody says, oh, the cedi is going to drop to this level, and I said, well, on what grounds are you saying the cedi is? Or if we say certain media, you cannot just put out certain information. It should be empirical, it should be fact-based. Yes, you talk about gagging, but then as part of checking oil prices, do you know what the UK and other countries did during 2009 at the very height of the recession? It got to a point you could not even talk about terrorism publicly because it was fueling the prices of the commodity called crude oil. You couldn't talk about it.
Well, we do understand your point. We have chartered economists and also a lecturer with the University of Ghana Business School on the line. Dr. John Gachi, a very good morning to you.
Good morning. I'm not in the University of Ghana.
University of Cape Coast, sir.
Okay.
Okay. And what do you make of the media review just in totality by the Finance Minister on Wednesday before Parliament?
Well, I think it provides clarity to the citizenry to understand what the government has been doing, what areas of success have been recorded, where we still have some difficulty, and the way forward to addressing those issues, whether indeed there is the need to hope that the situation will be overcome as quickly as possible or it will be prolonged. I think that is what I got out of the review yesterday, and also to acknowledge that in managing an economy, you must measure your performance within a certain environment. And if the environment is not conducive for the target you set for yourself, the right thing to do in order to minimize or try to control the expectation for performance of the economy, you need to review some of the targets. And that has been done yesterday. And I think that is the right thing to do.
Now, in reviewing the targets, and we're being told that, well, GDP now being targeted at 8.5% from 8.8, and we also have growth also targeted at 7.1%. Does it give any indication to the forecasters, those who tend to observe, like you, etc., that perhaps these very whatever projections they are could be achieved by the close of the financial period?
Well, I think the previous target of 8% is very clear that it's not achievable because of the hostile environment we find ourselves. If you look at the performance of 2013, we have similar conditions prevailing, except that the momentum has actually gone up in 2014. So if we were able to achieve 7.1% in 2013, then revising the target to 7.1 is more realistic than the 8% that has been indicated earlier on. And I also do believe that the expectation for the last half of the year is better than the first half of the year. So if you factor the expectation for inflow of financial resources in terms of foreign exchange, if you factor the areas that those monies are directed into the cocoa subsector, construction of feeder roads in the cocoa region, that will affect general agriculture, investment into agriculture, and then the coming on stream of the gas from the gas project in the western region. All these things are good expectations that provide space for us to achieve that target.
How will that ultimately influence whatever targets we have set at the macro level? And how can that also influence in terms of whatever recommended economic measures there are to improve micro stability?
I don't get your question. Are you relating the question to the GDP?
Yes, definitely.
Of course, you should rather see the whole issue from the other side, because it is the other activities in the economy that contribute to GDP. Therefore, if we expect inflow of $1.8 billion into the economy, and that money is going to the cash cow sector of the economy, especially cocoa, which brings a lot of money to the country, then one can only conclude that that is directed in a productive area, and that will contribute to the growth of agriculture, and for that matter, the economy. If you also look at the possible inflow of about $156 million to finance various projects relating to school building, provision of books, etc. in the country, all those things are going to somehow beef up the supply base of foreign currency, and all things being equal, we should have some moderated depreciation going forward, and that will provide space for better economic performance for the last half of the year. That is how I am looking at it.
As far as the CBD loan is concerned, and having all those revisions made now to a target of some 1.5 billion, we're told, and for the projected projects that these are expected to take care of, ultimately, that is, if we're in a position to have them streaming into the economy as far as the inflows are, how influential could they be in influencing activities in those sectors?
Well, there are complex issues involved in that. Number one, it seems to me that the $3 billion has been part of the debt portfolio of the country. If that is the case, scaling it down will mean that we need to scale down the debt portfolio of the country. That will provide better debt to GDP ratio for the country. It also means that the associated costs that we have been bearing, even when we were not accessing the loan, will also be dealt with in the interest of the state. So I look at it as a way of trying to streamline the CDB loan regime in the interest of the economic competition in the financial market as to how you provide funding to people. The CDB loan is could be looked at by other financiers to limit their interest in providing funds to us. So if you are not going to extricate yourself from the CDB loan, I have been on a seminar with World Bank representatives, and they make indication to some problems with the CDB loan. And I believe that this new realignment will provide a confidence to other people who are interested in providing funding to the country. So if you look at the complexity of the whole thing, I believe it provides better opportunity for the country than holding on to the 3 billion.
The Economic Intelligence Unit, I remember in its first quarter report, now specifically stated that the banks were likely going to shut down on giving access to consumer and other consumable loans to businesses as well as to the consumer public. Now, that really seems to be coming into fruition or coming into the picture now, just because also government is borrowing from the market. How is that also likely to influence spending for the next 2 quarters of the year?
I think we do not need the information from economic intelligence, whatever you're talking about. But all this information has been provided on quarterly basis by Bank of Ghana. They tell us what is happening in granting of loans. So long as the economic indicators that drive financial intermediation in the country are in difficulty, it will definitely affect, or it is affecting credit to individual households, and in many cases credit to SME sector. That is not the end. We also realize that there is a huge default rate among many people as a result of the high interest rate and the harsher economic situation in the country. And that may persist for some time until the macroeconomic realignment fully become a reality with the measures that have been put in place. So these are things that we'll bear with for now until the issues are remedied.
For you analysts and observers, what timelines do you give to get out of the doldrums as far as for the ordinary Ghanaian is concerned at the micro level, so to speak?
Well, I prefer to go with the technical term that are being used, that the medium-term prospect, because these measures that have been put in place, I do not expect that they should be able to address all the difficult challenges within this year. Some will extend to next year, and some will be 3 years before. We cannot diversify our economy within 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. It will go beyond that. We need to be very realistic. We cannot cut down our deficit significantly within a year, because that has implications for investment in goods and services. That has implications for investment in rural development, and we cannot sacrifice investment in rural development in the interest of just cutting deficit, especially if you are aware that the deficit came by as a result of investment in projects for the people of Ghana. So we need to factor all this and come to the realistic realization that these things are not to be remedied within a very short period of time. So I will go for medium term. Some of these challenges will carry us through the end of the year. Some will be abated by the close of the year, but majority of them will go with us. You can't remedy energy challenges within 1 year. You need investment to forestall some of them, and some of the investments can be very short term, but the operational benefits will only come by after some 6 months to 1 year. So we need to put all our hope at the beginning of next year for proper realignment.
Okay. In picking your mind on some of the economic measures that is recommended, there's always the touting or or the trumpeting of how a Commander sugar factory will help perhaps shore up whatever imports that we make, and so then the consumption and the demand locally would also at least go on the other side of the margin. And also we're talking about a brawler, so to speak, project that has been introduced, and we're told that 30,000 tons, metric tons annually at least, could be made available as far as poultry meat is concerned for local consumption. These intricate but very micro, small projections based on the investments that will be made, how would they help to alleviate the demands of having excessive imports and based on whatever consumptions that the ordinary Ghanaian will demand?
Since you introduced a time horizon in the discussion, I want to look at it from that angle.
Please do.
The problem we have is that any time a program or project is outlined in the budget, we tend to assume that those projects should be executed and the fruits be realized in the same financial year. How long does it take to procure or to go into proper agreement to establish or to revamp a sugar factory? Perhaps it takes 1 year, perhaps it takes 6 months. Procurement processes, etc. How long will it take the factory to be put in place? Machines to be installed, etc. So you realize that even though that is indicated in 2014 budget, the completion of that project may actually be maybe 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, and the fruit of that may not be this year. So that is a challenge that we have. We think that since we have good plans in a budget, they should affect our lives in the same fiscal year, which is not the reality. So the communication around budget also tends to actually give false hope for many Ghanaians. So we need to do proper education, especially projects indicated in the budget, so that the question that you are asking will not arise, because we all do know that the nature of this project is such that the benefit will only be realized after 2 years, even though it is indicated in this particular budget.
Your point, but whose fault is it? Is it not all those communications that are made by government? And even if the finance minister comes to the floor of parliament and make those projections, it is perceived, and he even tends to give the indication and the posture that it will be achieved within the period of the budget year. And as a result of that, that is also trumpeted by their political communicators to the ordinary Ghanaian.
The point I am making my professional comment, and it goes to all of them.
I do understand you're not a politician, so you don't want to meddle in the issues of politics.
So what I'm saying that we are all contributing to nation building. The statement I am making also goes to them. They must also learn from it. There are issues that that are very clear that they will start, they will be completed, and the benefit will inure to the people of Ghana in the same financial year. But there are some that is very clear to us that it could be implemented or it could be started in the financial year. Execution will be the next year. The benefit will come the following year. We need to communicate programs like that, so that the expectation that people have for the budget and then the activities of government is not misaligned.
Okay. And before we let you go, I've known you for some time. I've talked to you extensively on such matters, and these projections that you keep making, you've been making them for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Is it that the politicians don't listen, or the watchers of the economy or managers of the economy just don't listen?
Well, they listen, but sometimes they do not act. So after listening, I know they listen, but as to whether they act, it is something that I don't know. That is why we have some of these basic problems with us again. So they should not only listen, they must also act on some other things. For example, as early as March, April, we keep on trumpeting the point that the environment in which we were operating is not the best for the targets that we have for ourselves, but nobody was listening. And you wonder why somebody would want to tell his superior, in this case the people of Ghana, that I will be able to get inflation to 9.5% by the close of the year, when the reality indicates that you cannot achieve that, but you want the people to expect that you can achieve that. And at the end of the period, you see, managing an economy is also managing the political process. If you do not achieve that, you allow yourself to be bashed. So why will you give a target that you cannot achieve? But that was not adhered to as early as possible until we went to Senchi, and that issue came up again. And now we have actually seen the result yesterday that they have adhered to that. So respond to cogent suggestions, timely response to, cogent suggestions to the governance process is also very important for the development of the country.
Okay, so by this very half-year review, you think that any lessons have been learned so far? By those black and white notes read?
Yes. I've seen that lessons have been learned. And if you look at the script that the finance minister read, he also indicated that they have learned good lessons from this volatility, and they are factoring them into the economic management of the country. So for me, that is the key statement that the finance minister has made that we need to applaud him for, because if a finance minister will act as if he doesn't listen to what others are saying, and that will be a bane on his activities. But for the finance minister to tell the whole world that they have learned lessons from the volatility and they are factoring them in the economic management of the country, that must be a good finance minister.
Well, thank you very much. Chartered economist and lecturer with the University of Cape Coast Business School, John Gachi, speaking to us on the subject. Okay. Okay, senior lecturer, sir. Okay. Sorry, Dr. Gachi. And so we have Mohammed Atiq. He's a development expert. And, okay, development expert and a policy analyst. He's also a politician as well, let me add that. He is with the PNC. Your thoughts on the budget and the comments you want to make, especially taken from where John Gachi left off.
Yeah, thank you very much, and let me say good morning to our cherished viewers. For me, the midterm review is something that ordinarily all ministers would do, especially, and in this country we have a problem with forecasting. Sometimes we forecast our targets in a manner to satisfy political ends rather than to reflect the economic realities. And so I would expect that at every turn, we will have to go back to Parliament to review our targets and so on and so forth. But let me start off from where Dr. Gachi, I'm sure is the name, left off. That Setepe took on board some of the suggestions at Senchi. I have made this point severally, that what happened at Senchi was a rehashing of what we know already. Look, they talked about injecting in more investment to ensure that we show up manufacturing in this country. Who hasn't talked about changing the fundamentals of our economy? And when we talk about changing the fundamentals of an economy, we simply mean that if that economy is an importing economy, if that economy is an economy that doesn't produce or add value to its raw materials, when you talk about changing the fundamentals, what you simply are talking about is add value to the raw materials we produce, and that means industrialization. They also talked about, in fact, they repeated the fact that central bank should not be financing government's deficit beyond the 10% threshold and so on and so forth. These are things that we know already. So if when Minister Setepe says he's going to factor the Senchi consensus into the planning of how to manage the economy, he's virtually not saying anything new. But specifically on what he came to present, I think the picture isn't very pleasant.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we're having some challenge with the sound, so we have to take a break. When we come back, we'll fix that, then we'll get back to you. Mohammed, you are making your point, so just make those conclusions.
Yes, I was making the point that generally, if you look at the picture the minister presented, and rightly so, is quite gloomy. You look at
gloomy?
Yeah, I would say gloomy. And the revised targets he has brought, I do not even think that we can meet them. Look, if you are revising your GDP growth rate, initially we're targeting that we're going to grow, including oil, at 8.0%, and excluding oil.
Now it's 7.1.
Yes.
More realistic.
Not realistic. Look, you see, he himself admitted in the course of his presentation that there is a huge decline in national output. And when we talk about national output, we are simply talking about the GDP. Hold on.
It's a huge. You can,
oh,
please,
there's
a decline in national output.
Can you
say no, but you need to correct that.
Oh, can I make
Let
my
him make
point?
his point and then you rebut. I
Is
think
it-
that's the best way to.
He was lamenting about
This one is heckling.
this and needless one at that.
Needless.
Is it, yeah. He was talking about how tax receipts have actually declined over the period. And he was attributing it to how national output has also declined. Because, look, you get your taxes from incomes. And so if there is a decline in national output, it means that there is a decline in incomes. So revenues certainly are not going to come. And if you look at the target, I mean the out 10 and then the target that we have in our budget, the difference is so huge, which tells you that incomes really have dropped hugely. And by extension, national output has also declined hugely. And that is why I'm making that point. And so to come and say, oh, even though national output is declining at this...
Because there are certain variables that are parallel to each other. They all
You
go.
see, if you look at all the... You see, if you are doing an analysis of an economy, there are some fundamental variables you can't ignore. Mostly macro variables. You take inflation, all right? You take your growth rate. You take, for instance, your interest rate and your exchange rate and so on and so forth. None of these variables is doing good. In fact, as a matter of fact, you take the currency, for instance, and you can't help but to... In fact, it is the second worst performing currency in the world, next to South Sudan. And if, in terms of currency or currency potency, we have been compared to South Sudan, it tells you that this is a crisis situation. It has gone beyond the level of
I
challenge.
thought we were rather being compared to Ukraine because Ukraine was just up us.
No.
They
South
are up
Sudan.
us and we are down
You
there.
said I shouldn't
And then before we have
provide
South Sudan. So,
Sorry?
okay, you continue.
No, the information I have is that South Sudan is the worst performing currency.
They are
next
the
to
last.
Ghana.
What is
Actually.
the source of your information?
The source of my information. The last time I checked, I was looking at comparative currency.
When was the
Hold
last
on.
time you checked?
Oh, it's been a while.
You
But-
can easily
But
verify it on
the
the
point
internet.
is that I don't even, it's not even about the position of where our currency performance is. The point is that it is a worst performing currency. And if you have a currency, look, everything, one funny thing about economics is that one variable has everything about economics, especially managing, and they have snowballing effects. One thing leads to the other and the other leads to the other. If your currency is in bad shape, it has an effect on your inflation because we have what we call pass-through effects. It will cause your inflation to rise. And for an importing economy like Ghana, it is going to get worse. And so if you are now projecting, as we speak, our inflation is at 15%. And we are projecting that that's the revised target is what I'm talking about. As we speak, the out 10 today is 15%. And your revised target is that it's 13% within a band of +2 or -2. Which means you are targeting that we should maintain the 15%. And look, the things that push Ghana's inflation are largely cost push pressures. And now, if you look at the way petroleum, the prices are going up. Certainly, you can't expect inflation to stand at 15%.
And it has an influence on prices of goods and services.
Exactly. You don't expect our inflation to be at 15%. Our currency keeps getting worse. It is not getting better. You don't expect our inflation to stay at 15%. So if your target, which is the reviewed target, is still 15%, it tells you that we are just kidding ourselves. It's more of a political economic target than a real economic target. You take, for instance, our interest rates. It is worse and it's not getting any better. You see, the Bank of Ghana or the central bank uses what we call inflation targeting as an instrument to achieve price stability. And the fundamental model is to target your policy rate so that it will have transmission effects on interest rates in the banks. Now, you've increased your policy rate. In fact, last year it was increased by 200 basis points. And 200 basis points simply means 2%. From 16% to 18%. We've increased it by 100 basis points again to 19%. You know what that means? You are going to, and these things, when you increase the policy rate, you expect the transmission through the banks by how they also charge their lending rates or how they, target their lending rates. Now, it is already difficult to access credit. Businesses are collapsing because it is difficult to access credit because they are already competing with government. So there is crowding out effect. Now, you are making the situation worse by increasing your policy rate, which means the banks come to you to borrow at 19%. They are not for the Christmas institutions. They are there to do business and to make profit.
And definitely they'll
transfer it to the ordinary, already struggling business. Now, how many people can go to the bank and borrow at such huge rates? At the end of the day, the problem we are complaining about, which is low or decline in national output, is going to get worse because people cannot expand businesses. You understand? And once people can't expand businesses, it means incomes are going to suffer. Already people have even lost their jobs. You see, the minister did not mention, he just mentioned that there is a decline in national output. And he was attributing it to volatilities in power production. The bigger question is the hostile business environment, access to credit. Now government is competing. And you made a point about treasury bills have become more lucrative. The reason why the central bank drifted from using OMO, or what we call open market operations, as a means to achieve price stability to IT was simply that government oftentimes would use the OMO rather to raise money to go and finance its deficit. And that's exactly what has become the situation today. And banks rather
if we want to argue about this, I think we'll go on the whole day. So I think yes, because you were in late. Sure. I think you didn't get petrol.
No. I think there was a miscommunication in the timing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. We apologize. Your comments, 30 seconds, I'm sorry.
30 seconds?
You've spoken all day.
But 10 seconds.
Okay. Roland, first of all, I'm even surprised at the question you got. I mean, you didn't have fuel.
No, which is a legitimate question.
Is there any fuel shortage in town?
George, wrap up.
I just asked, is there any fuel shortage?
So no, there's no fuel shortage. It's not to be any mischievous question. It's just to him personal.
Thank you very much. I mean, I'm surprised that as a policy analyst, he thinks that the targets that have been reviewed are not achievable. He talks about the fact that inflation is currently pegged at 15%.
You're wrapping up.
Yes, I'm wrapping up.
Going to a whole discussion.
No. I'm only taking his target. He said the target.
Because once he wraps up on this note,
he said the targets are not achievable. And I'm saying, as a policy analyst, I'm surprised. I mean, I don't know if it's for the politics, but I know in his heart he knows they are very, very achievable. You look at the inflation currently pegged at 15%. And the minister is saying we're looking at 13% with a bandwidth, I mean, a margin of plus or minus 2%, meaning we could go as low as 11% or as high as 15%. Why is it realistic? It is realistic in the sense that what are
but we can't go 11. It's not possible, is it?
We could.
Okay. I don't have any scientific
evidence.
I'm only looking at the variable.
I want you. Okay. You checked him when you said I shouldn't come in, and I'm talking and he's coming.
Yes, I have to wrap up. I'm sorry.
Okay, so
I'm sure we could have time.
All right. So George Spencer Quay is a member of the NDC's communication team and policy analyst, also with the PNC. Is Mohammed Atik. Sorry, he was in late because he said he had a clash of miscommunication in the timing. I don't know on whose fault.
No, I think from my outfit.
It was from us. But George, which time did we give you?
I was given 7 anyway.
Okay, so we're taking a break. We'll be right back.